You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anisa, and Paroma. Hi, I'm Anisa.
And I'm Paroma.
And today we're going to be talking about Dr. Cha, which recently finished airing, and it was, how do we feel about it, Paroma?
I would say I'm leaning strongly towards the positive. There are certain things I wish had been done differently, but that's the case with majority of the dramas I watch.
Yeah.
But,
I think it was like overall an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
It was a fun watch. Tell me what your like overall impressions of the show were, like in more detail.
So, okay, I've had some time to think about it. Initially, I wasn't. So, this is like a fully spoiled yak, by the way, guys. If you haven't watched till the very end, don't listen to this episode because we're going to be discussing the ending.
Yep.
So, I've had some time to think about it. I've had some space from that finale. And I think most of us were really caught up on who our protagonist was going to end up with. And at least, I don't think I was super invested in her love story because she didn't seem super invested in a love story. However, the ending that the drama chose for her initially gave me a bit of a shock. Not a shock exactly. I just wasn't expecting the drama to do that. But then, having had like a week or so to digest it, I now really like it. I like it even more because thinking back, and we will go over all of these points slowly, I realized that the drama had been foreshadowing that ending from pretty early on, especially through her relationship with her best friend, and how the two perceived each other's life. Okay, so I have had an overall positive experience watching Dr. Cha. I tune in every week. I did not find myself bored at any point. I found the conversations online extremely entertaining. And and also I really loved the kids. Like I don't know why in this kind of a story, the kids are not usually, but occasionally made very bratty and annoying. But even when the kids in this drama were bratty, there was the writing humanized their brattiness, like gave us context for why they were behaving the way they were behaving. But yes, so overall positive, I like lots of things, and I want to dive in and talk about that now.
Yeah. So for me, I was pretty hesitant to start this because as much as I like Jung-hwa a lot, love her, I was like, a medical drama? No. I mean, I don't really like medical dramas. I have to be like dragged kicking and screaming by the weight of public opinion anytime I watch a medical drama. But, like she's so charming and it was such a popular show, which I think I agree with you. That was one of the fun things about watching this while it was airing is that there was a lot of chatter about it. People were enjoying it. And it's always fun to watch something with a lot of people, something popular that there's a lot of discussion and things around. Especially if there's like stuff that you want to rant about, because then you can also rant with others about, like you can kind of join that train. I think I also had a mostly enjoyable experience. There were some parts of her story that I didn't love, but overall, I just thought it was a really lovely portrait of someone who kind of has a big wake-up call in their life, and then decides to take a risk, do something that, is going to change their life, but maybe they've been into this like holding pattern of just putting everything that they want on the back burner for way too long. And that was her, right? That was Cha Jung-suk. She'd just been living her life for her family for the last like 20 years. And then suddenly, and here was where we go into full spoilers, like, and I mean, this is in episode 1 or 2, but like she's about to have she gets liver disease, right? She gets hepatitis B?
Yeah.
A?
B.
She gets hepatitis B, and she needs a liver transplant. And so then it exposes a lot of things about her life that she had just been kind of accepting, and like things become normal, you just kind of live with them, and then like something shakes you up and you're like, oh, my husband's actually been treating me like crap. My mother-in-law kind of doesn't care if I live or die. Oh, like none of these people that I thought that I've been like sacrificing everything for are actually like willing to help me out when I'm in my time of need. That's crappy. Like maybe I should think about what I want now. And so that was a really nice way to start. And you know, I like how they deal with her the whole experience of being older and going back and trying to follow your dreams. Like that's compelling. But yeah, I think I didn't mind how it ended. I think it just needed to be done a little better right at the end. Like I think they could have achieved it in a more smooth way that kind of made more sense, but I didn't mind her ending at all because I think it was really about her journey in the end rather than like who's she going to date next, you know?
Yeah.
That wasn't really the point.
So about her wake-up call at the very beginning, so she has a couple of them, right? Like she realizes during an emergency, during a bus ride, that she's completely useless in that scenario. Even though she has a doctor's degree, she hasn't practiced medicine at all. So she isn't a practicing doctor. She can't actually call herself a doctor in a meaningful way. Like what was the point of, all of her studies, her passion for medicine at one point of time. And she is just so grateful when a real doctor does step in and can save that life that she completely couldn't. And then I really like that was the initial jhatka. So the thing that shakes her up. I mean, it doesn't really shake her up, but it reminds her of who she used to be in a very poignant and like it was a good thrust. Like the boxing punch. Now,
Nice jab.
Jab. That's what I'm looking for, not thrust. And then you have her coming down with hepatitis. But even by that point, you can already see that her family really takes her for granted. Her two children, whom she has educated and raised, as far as I can tell, more or less by herself, because her husband doesn't seem like a super involved parent, except for how he hands down diktats about which careers his children are allowed to follow, but then his wife has to do the actual work of like pushing them towards it.
Odious man.
Oh,
Truly, what an odious man.
Just the worst. And what is even though we will come back to what I really hold against the drama. Okay, maybe I can say this right now. They cast a really cute boy as his younger self. I thought that was just so unfair. On the one hand, yes, I mean, I sort of understand he was super cute. But on the other hand, you should not do that. This is like a backhanded way of trying to make him more sympathetic in drama language. Just,
I actually, no, but I disagree with you because he had to be really cute and charming. Otherwise, like, how can you root for this main character who, like,
fell for him?
Basically, like, fell for him while he had an actual girlfriend. Like, he was cheating and she cheated with him. Like, he's mostly at fault, but she's not completely not at fault in that situation, right? Like, she knows he has a girlfriend. So you need to be able to, like, I mean, okay, they were young and they made a mistake, but also, like, you need to be able to understand a little bit why she kind of got caught up in the moment. If he was just like a random dude that wasn't that cute, you're like, okay, girl, I'm like judging your life choices. What are you doing here?
No, I completely agree with you. The sensible part of me agrees with you wholeheartedly. The petty side of me wishes that they had made him at least slightly slimy when he was younger, because he seems like such a decent guy when he was that young. And the mistake that they made had a result, and he stepped up. And like at that point, of course, in their life, this was 30 years back, they wouldn't have been able to get an abortion easily. She would have had to live with like deep stigma. She didn't come from a very affluent family. So he stepped up in that situation. And at that time, that was the right thing to do. So yes, both of them did a wrong thing, but then they did the responsible thing at that time. But then this guy is just, you know how in 18 again you have you have the what is Oscar's real name, the actor's name?
Oh,
Basically the male protagonist.
Yoon Sang-hyun, I think.
So the main lead, basically, he marries his girlfriend when she gets pregnant, when they were both 18, and then regrets it for the next like couple of decades because he had to give up his dream and he's stuck in a dead end job. And I know the drama, like the entire point of the drama is to show that while bitterness is justified, it shouldn't have turned against his family. And I completely agree with the drama's moral themes. It's also a fact that 18-year-olds probably shouldn't be burdened with that situation to begin with. So some amount of bitterness, you can kind of understand where that comes from. With Kim Byung-chol's character, Seo In-ho, I couldn't like connect his younger self with this older 50-something version. Like that guy who, did take responsibility for his actions. How is he the same guy as this one who doesn't seem to take any responsibility for anything? Like you see him throughout the drama basically shirking his responsibilities all the time to everybody who depends on him. So some amount of just like viewer disconnect in my head between those two. But anyway, coming back to Jung-hwa's character, Cha Jung-suk. So Cha Jung-suk has that, that moment in that during that emergency in the bus, and then you have her coming down with hepatitis, and her husband, first of all, completely unavailable to come and check in on her because he's on a trip off with his girlfriend, and her mother-in-law is not interested. She doesn't want to disturb her kids. And it's just, she is so alone in that emergency room. She's just absolutely alone. And it's so sad. And then you have everybody finding out that she needs a liver transplant, and her husband's family reacting like... It was the worst reaction. It was literally the worst reaction. And also, I was just thinking of
acting like they're inconvenienced by her being sick, basically.
Absolutely. They're inconvenienced. Yeah. And it just, you have that entire situation playing out in Dr. Roy's chamber. This is our potential male second lead. And he's watching this entire scenario unfold. And I remember from like one of the cases in a hospital playlist where a similar thing happened. I think the wife needed a transplant and the husband was clearly unwilling. And the family was sort of... I don't remember who. I remember what the situation was. The situation was the husband needed a transplant. The wife was being pressured by the entire family to do the transplant. I don't remember the transplant of what. But I remember that other members of the family were viable, like the husband's brother was a viable donor, but nobody in the family wanted to donate. They were like, well, that's what the wife is for. The wife should do it. So the wife had health issues already, but then she was being pressured.
Yeah.
So one of the protagonists of Hospital Playlist, he was the doctor, and he was like, listen, you don't have to go through with this. In that scenario, he was reassuring the wife that she has the right to say no because it's her body. She gets a choice. And then you have this scenario where the husband is healthy, like he's the most viable donor around right there. There is no alternative for his wife. And the way the family reacts is, especially he and his mother and his girlfriend, of course, off screen, is that you should not do it. Like, that's her body. The wife is just like suddenly an alien being, a stranger, an outsider. Why should your body be compromised for her sake? And that's just...
that same body that's been performing domestic labor and like childbirth and raising your children for the last 30 years. But suddenly she's like, oh, like that's her thing. That's her issue. You don't need to care about that. Oh my God. It was so infuriating.
It was really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the men for a second and the way that, do you want to talk about the husband first?
Yes.
Let's talk about the husband first. So I think there was a really genius move to cast Kim Young-chul because he is so funny and he's like a funny villain. Like that's usually what he plays, is a villain who's also kind of funny.
Mm.
And that's exactly what he needed to do here. And I think I was talking to you guys about this last time we chatted, but like it's such a brilliant career trajectory to see him going from just playing villains to now playing husbands who are actually villains in dramas. Like that's what he does now. He just plays like evil husbands. But then you have this like this history in your brain of having watched him as so many villains, and you're just like, yeah, you are an actual villain. This is what you are. He did the same thing in Sky Castle, and he was so horrible and also so funny. And I don't know how he does it, but he is amazing. Like kudos to the actor.
He stands out. So he was in Sisyphus too. He was the main villain there, and he was charismatic. There are certain scenes that stand out even in that drama, and he was just like him burning money, like just throwing it casually away because money is paper and it means absolutely nothing from where he comes from. And the way he does it, because the man is charismatic when he wants to turn it on in the villain mode, just pitch perfect. So he was genius casting here, and I honestly think it's because of Kim Byung-chul's this slimy but funny kind of pathetic character, that this drama was actually as fun to watch as it was. Because for large parts of the drama, especially in the second half, Jung-suk isn't actually doing much. Like she's reacting to events and she's slowly processing things. But it's Kim Byung-chul that's In-ho, So In-ho, who actually takes over the plot to an extent. And you're just watching him be pathetic and making selfish decisions over and over again. And it's infuriating. But because he is as funny, and because his presence is as dramatic as it is, that it's still he elevated the script in those parts of the drama.
Totally. Yeah. If they had like cast someone who was just kind of a one-note terrible man who was just doing terrible things to his wife and children, like that would have been gotten old really fast, like, and there are a lot of other actors who could have like done a serviceable job, but they wouldn't have brought that like the energy and the humor where you're like, you hate him, but at the same time you're kind of entertained. Like you had to have that. Otherwise this would be very depressing to watch because he does so many horrible things to her. And there are a lot of situations where like she's not in a position to do anything right away, like there's this whole, there's in the beginning, she is kind of hoping that he will donate his liver to her. So she's kind of like not able to really say much. And then afterwards, she's in a position of like, she wants to work at the hospital where he is. So she needs him to like not mess it up for her. Even like later when she's asking him to give her a divorce and he doesn't want to do it. Like there's so many situations where like he's being a total piece of garbage to her and she doesn't necessarily have the leverage to do anything to him because he's the one with the leverage in that situation. And so like that would be really miserable. I mean, there was still some times where it was kind of miserable to watch, but it would have been especially miserable to watch if it was just like a flat kind of villain character without any of the additional spice that he brings to the role.
Yeah, I agree. Like he some of my favorite scenes is like in the initial, so there is this one scene, again, in the first half of the drama where he's desperately trying to get his wife to just resign from her residency because she might find out that his girlfriend works in the same hospital. And so he blackmails her several times using whatever leverage he can. So at one point, the blackmail that he uses, the material that he uses is his daughter's career. So he finds out that his daughter is studying to go into art school instead of medicine, and he destroys, like he throws out her art material and just lays down the law that she can't, that he won't pay for it. And then so when Jung-suk comes home and she finds out what happened, so she pleads with him to just let their daughter do what she did. And she's like, it's my fault for not having confronted you before. I should have just dealt with it instead of hiding. And again, that hiding thing is something I've seen mothers do in like bad situations. I've had an aunt that I've seen growing up who did this. Like, she would hide things from her husband constantly about what her children actually want to do. And it was just, there are these scenes that I have seen versions of play out in that family. And I was really impressed by the writing, honestly, in many of these scenes. Anyway, so back to that scene. So she's arguing with him. She's pleading him, just let her do what she wants to do. And he's like, he sits in his office and he is like, fine, I will give up your residency. And like at that moment, honestly, I thought, well, she's been a mother for so long. She's tolerated so much mistreatment. Surely she will just say, okay, fine, I will do it for my daughter's sake. But thank God the writing doesn't go there. And Jung-suk is like, what the hell is wrong with you? No. And she walks out. And then she tries to figure out how she can, afford it herself. She takes out a loan, but like she decides that there is another way. His way is not the only way. But what I absolutely love is the punctuation after she leaves the room saying this is bullshit is him, his facade crumpling and him going kind of like throwing his legs and hands out in the air like a child throwing a tantrum and going like, why didn't this work? It just, just those, those really added a level of entertainment to the story that otherwise, the story might otherwise have been pretty dour if not for those moments. So
you know what I really love? There's this one part where he's sleeping. She goes and like slaps him really hard across the face, and he wakes up and he's like, "What just happened? Did you just slap me?" She's like, "Oh, you were dreaming." He's like, "Oh, what just happened to me?" That's so great. Like he deserves it so much. Oh my god, there were so many moments like that, which like really helped break the tension because, it needed that humor. And I so agree with you about how smart the writing is about the family dynamics. Like there's a lot of different family dynamics. You have Jung-suk and her mom. You have Jung-suk and her mother-in-law, which is like fascinating. There's
really
the two mothers of, like Jung-suk's mom and In-ho's mom, and like their whole like complicated relationship, which is like so well written and so funny. There's In-ho with his mom, which is like this really weird, codependent, kind of toxic relationship that they have. And then like, how they interact with their children, the children's interact, even like the their son and daughter, how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
There's this one moment where like, I think it's right after she tells her son and daughter that she's gonna divorce their dad. And like they go into her bedroom, she tells them, and that scene was really sweet, like the way she tells them. And they go out, and then like he just does this like oppa thing where he's like, it's gonna be okay. I think he like touches her shoulder or something, and that's it. Like you can tell that they don't like talk about their feelings with each other, but he cares and he wants her to be okay. And it was just like that little moment, and I was like, oh, that's real. That's very real.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're just so it's just so well done. I think like that was the strength of this. I don't think that I enjoyed the hospital cases as much. They weren't really well done. Yeah, they were kind of nonsensical. It was just like plot mechanics to contrive like, funny situations between Roy Kim and the husband and her, and like whatever. That wasn't really why we were watching the show.
Yeah.
It was the hospital stuff was kind of ridiculous. But I think that was like really where the writing shone, is in these interpersonal relationships.
I agree. I also really like Jung-suk's relationship with her children. Earlier in the episode, I talked about how much I just like the writing of the children, but also the gentleness with which she approaches serious conversations with her children. And also the funny situations that happen. So early on, when she joins the residency program, and she is basically, she's in the same hospital as her son. She's doing the same residency as her son, pretty much, I think. And she keeps calling him because she doesn't know a lot of these procedures. She's forgotten. It's been 20 years, 30 years. How long has it? 25 years, sorry. And of course, she keeps relying on him. And at one point, he wants to help his mom. He really does. Like, you can see how sweet and supportive he is, but he's also getting really tired.
Yeah.
So at one point, he just meets her on the roof, and he's like, can you just stop doing this to me? And she's like, I carried you for 9 months. And I was
And
like,
you're like,
this is-
that's a good point. You can't really say anything.
how do you argue with that? But
You cannot.
I also love that he sent her that YouTube video and she's like, oh, you can find out stuff like this. Oh, I mean, in that case, I don't need you anymore.
He's such a good son. I love him so much. Everything about him, like the way he is with his parents, the way he is with his like Sunbae, who he's also dating.
Yeah.
Their whole romance was
But
so
I
good
love
from
Sora
beginning
so
to end.
much, by the way.
She's great.
John
She's
Sora
great.
is great, really, really good. I also really like that they're okay. Look, we will get to them later. So Jung-suk's relationship with everybody, but then again, Jung-hwa has always been she's a veteran actress. She knows what she's doing. But just the tonal changes that she does depending on who she is talking to add so much to those relationships. I really like how with her mother-in-law, like she clearly knows her mother-in-law really well, down to the, most awful pettiness. And she finds out what she doesn't know, she finds out, through the drama. But even when she knows the worst of her mother-in-law, her tone doesn't exactly change. Like she still stays respectful and polite, but also somewhat affectionate. Like the affection of 25 years of having taken care of this woman. So I'm and of course her tone changes when she's talking to her mom, and all of that is extremely great. The one thing that I will point out is how close in age her mom, her mother-in-law, and Jong-hwa are. Somebody else pointed this out. I don't remember who, but I kind of wonder why is it that. So when you have a character like Jong-hwa's, who's supposed to be in her late 40s, right, and her mother-in-law would, I suppose, be at least in her late 60s to early 70s, you would expect a similar age difference in the casting. However, Jung-hwa is 53 currently, and Park Jun-gyum, who plays her mother-in-law, is 60. Their age difference is 7 years. The reason, the casting is great. They play their characters beautifully. But I kind of sometimes wonder, it's not as if there aren't really great actresses working right now who could have been playing somebody, who is supposed to be in their 70s. The reason I bring this up is because age of actors and age of characters are often mismatched in dramas, and we just go with it. Especially the writing is great, we don't really talk about it. But it's especially weird when Jung-hwa's mother, who's played by Kim Mi-kyung, is also I think 6 years older than her, the actress. And that's just why there are older actors who could have been cast in that role. So why is it that there is always this ceiling somewhere where you just like younger actors, like these actors are much younger than the age they are supposed to be. So maybe cast them for roles that are suitable for their own age group. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making a good point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I wonder like how in the where in the casting process they chose all of these people, and whether they cast the older actresses first, and they ended up settling on Jung-hwa later because her husband is also Kim Byung-chul is also he's much younger than her. He's born in
he's 48 years old,
1974.
so 5 years younger than her.
Yeah. So I feel like he is closer to, like, I think he's the only one who's really close to the age of his character, whereas like the other three are all kind of too young, or so I wonder, maybe it's just like a matter of who you can get to say yes to the role. I also wonder if they are casting these older ladies. Well, I think Kim Mi-kyung's role could definitely have been played by an older actor, but Park Jung-gum is a very like energetic and very funny actress. Like she's so
also
funny.
Played this exact mother-in-law character,
and she has done this, yeah. And so this has kind of become her like trademark role, and she's been doing it for like. I remember the first time I saw her playing this kind of role was in 2010 when she did Secret Garden. She's been playing a lot older than her age for a long time.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just become like her brand and her like her thing. But it's just really, but I wonder if the fact that she is younger and she can give that like wacky performance, like she has the energy. I mean, obviously everyone's different. Older people also have energy and vitality. I'm not saying that they don't, but maybe that's part of the reason that she gets
No,
cast so much is
I
because
somewhat
she's so
understand what
funny
you're
and
saying. From what I have seen of like producers talking about casting, they really go for like whoever they can think of in connection with that role when they're reading it, and they might have just like thought of Park Jun-hyun and gone like she would be perfect for this role instead of casting by age. But one of the reasons they think of Park Jun-hyun immediately is because she has acted in so many dramas in recent years, so she's fresh
totally.
on top of their head. So I'm not saying it's like individual PDs at fault here. I'm saying it's the way the casting system is built up. So when you have a certain actor playing much older age groups and doing it for like over a decade at this point. A very similar storyline would be Queen of Mysteries, like where the daughter-in-law realizes how, badly she's been treated and then goes on to make a mark of the world. She was also Solok's mother-in-law in that
She
drama.
was.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
same character. It's just because you
Yeah.
have this actor playing this character in so many dramas over so many years. Of course, she's the first actor who's gonna sort of strike the producer when you think about it. And unless somebody comes in and tells them, hey, maybe consider a few other actors, older actors who are maybe no longer getting work because they are 10 years older, but they would, they fit this age group exactly correctly, then maybe some other actor would also have had an opportunity to play this character. I'm sorry I took this entire thing in a whole different direction. It's just something that had been bothering me for a while.
Yeah. I wonder if it's also just like the ageism of wanting to cast younger people instead of older people.
I'm sure that also plays into it like over time. Nobody really thinks about it actively, but that's exactly why we need to bring these things up. So we push people to take that extra minute and think about it actively. So, yeah. Okay, back to the drama.
Back to the drama.
What did you think about the love triangle? Was that effective?
Yeah, let's talk about Roy Kim. No, I think for me, I know, and we should talk about also how Roy Kim's story ends, because I think I wasn't happy with that. But like what he is for her in this is not really a love interest so much as like a really good friend and like a supportive, caring. I mean, he is her doctor. He's also her friend. Like obviously like pretty early on they move beyond that professional relationship and they become real friends. And he's also kind of like a hope for her future, that like she can have alternatives, like he's the one who's like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can be a doctor, like you're a good doctor, you can. And even in the beginning he's like, you can, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna live, like you're not gonna die, like, because she's like kind of resigns herself, and so he gives her that hope for the future. And so throughout the whole drama, that's kind of what he represents in my mind, is like a hope. And at a certain point it was also like the hope of a new romantic relationship after she like finishes dealing with her like husband's garbage and she moves on. I mean, that didn't really happen, but the hope was there, right? Like she thinks about it a couple of times. It's not like she's completely immune to his charms. I think he works really well in that role. I don't think that he's a real romantic interest for her. Okay. Because they wait so long before she even has those like flutters. I don't even remember what episode. It was like very late in the drama when she started thinking of him as a man. And then she like walks it back at the end like, oh, I never thought of you that way. You're just a friend. I'm not interested. She like shuts him down very quickly.
Yeah, shuts him down hard. But also I agree with you. He had been a source of strength, support for her for the entirety of the drama. And I was actually somewhat glad, like towards the end, that she wasn't exactly a source of support for him, but like she could at least give him some good advice about his own situation, because like throughout the drama she was just receiving from him, and that makes an uneven dynamic that I didn't really love. But I honestly thought the purpose of having a Roy Kim in the drama was not so much for Jung Suk, but for Inho. Because if we had exactly the same story but no Roy Kim, then Inho would have seen Jung Suk, the threat of Jung Suk leaving him, as something that had less potential for actually happening. Like he would have felt more confident that she would have not actually left him. His behavior towards her may have been worse. Like he may have been stubborn for a longer period of time if he didn't really take the threat of her leaving seriously. And one of the reasons he did is because he saw that, oh, she can go on to have a future with another man. That is what, inspired jealousy in him. I don't love this aspect of K-dramas, but K-dramas do them often.
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I don't really love this aspect of men either, but men do that often too, where they're like, I don't want you, and then like somebody else wants you, and they're like, oh, but I actually kind of care. And even if I don't want you, I don't want somebody else to have you. And you're like, dude. But that's kind of how it works a lot of times, unfortunately.
What did you think about Myung Se-bin, that is Chae Sang-hee's character, and her daughter, like that entire side of things? Because I thought it was really well done.
Before we talk about that, can we just talk about how Roy Kim and story ended?
Let's talk
about that first.
Yeah.
So at the end of the drama, he like gives her this confession, and she basically is like, nope, it's never gonna happen. Don't even try. I don't have time for you in my life. And like, I thought that was kind of weird because if nothing else, okay, you saw that she had some kind of awareness of him as a man, but like it's totally understandable if she doesn't want to pursue anything with him. He is a lot younger than her. I can see why she would feel uncomfortable starting a relationship this quickly after her divorce. That's all fine. But like they're not even friends anymore. Like after that scene when you see her going and getting her motorcycle license, I thought that was because like now they're like motorcycle riding buddies. And they've so like sweet. Continued their friendship, because he was there for her during like some of the most difficult times in her life, and now she's just gonna like cut him off. I thought that was weird. Like they were running together, they were friends. Yeah. So that was weird. I was like, just stay friends. Just be in each other's lives. And then you can like root for him when he meets this like new anonymous girlfriend. Like you don't have to cut him out of your life completely. I thought that was kind of weird. I feel like they were like, we don't have that much time left. We just have to wrap this up. So Roy Kim, your time's almost over.
But also I find that when they start like hurrying through things, they tend to default to K-drama basics. And K-drama basics say that if a man and a woman start off as friends, and if they start having romantic feelings for each other, they can't stay friends once a rejection has happened. You've seen this over and over again. This has been true throughout the history of K-dramas. Some really great friendships have come to absolutely nothing because, Yeah,
I know, but like he was there with her through like liver surgery and divorce. Like it's not like a shallow friendship, right? It's a pretty. Apparently she went with him to meet his like biological family, and she comforted him. Like it was not. So I mean, even if he needed some time to like mend his heart, which like I also don't buy that he was ready to marry her. Like I could buy that he was interested in her and he wanted to like date her, but like it's not like he was pining and heartbroken. Like don't tell me he was heartbroken. No, there's no way.
I actually thought he was pretty removed. Like whenever he would act very emotionally to something Inho said about how you are coveting my wife, and the two of them get into a tussle and stuff, I found that really odd because he didn't actually go around acting like he was like pining really hard for
he wasn't right. Like it's not like he was lovesick and miserable. He was just like, wow, this is a really great woman, and as a viewer you're like, yeah, she's a great woman, and he's like, oh, she's attractive and smart, and like the people in her life aren't treating her well, and you're like, yeah, but it wasn't like a love for the ages that he would be like, well, now I can't even see you again, I'm so upset. Also, there was a time skip. So he could have taken a break and they could have like returned to their friendship after he like sorted out his feelings. I don't know. That was weird. I
agree. I just accepted it because I figured, hey, that's just what K-dramas do. But I agree, it doesn't actually make story sense. Not given how, they have, like, at no point did they ever have a romantic relationship. If you've had a romantic relationship, okay, fair enough, you've gotten really close and you need distance to sort of mend your heart. It was nothing. So that miscolors the relationship that we saw. Like, that makes it feel as if it was conditional. It was conditional on her eventually saying yes to him, and that just makes that whole friendship like,
Yeah, and also, like, he's not that kind of person. He's such a decent
Exactly.
person. From everything that we've seen about him, that was, like, the biggest point of contrast between the two men, right? Is that, like, he is a fundamentally decent and, like, generous person who doesn't require you to do anything in response for him to do something for you. Like, he was willing to donate his liver to her. Meanwhile, her husband, everything is conditional. Everything is transactional. He's only in it for what he can get from you. Like, that's been his whole character. You're right. Maybe not in the past, but like now that's who he is, right?
Exactly.
So like that was one of the things that was like so it wasn't just like, oh, should she stay with her husband or go with this new guy? It was like her husband's a piece of trash and this other guy is showing her like don't always have to be like that. Like you don't have to settle for this because there are actually good guys out there and you can leave this guy, you know?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Chae Sung-hee and that whole plot line of they're like a multi-decade drama of her and In-ho.
So they did this odd thing with Ji Sung-hee where I was actually, okay, so in the initial episodes, of course, the little we saw of Ji Sung-hee was that she was, his woman on the side, and she didn't want him to donate his liver. And it was just, it's not the best look, right? But then you saw, like, the more scenes we saw with her and her daughter, the more I felt for her character. Like, of course, she was making a series of wrong decisions. She'd been doing them for years. Like, when she decided to raise the child by herself, and then, reappeared in his life with child, it just, initially her intentions seemed to have been in the right place. Like, she just wanted her kid to know her father, but didn't actually want to, like, break up his marriage. Like, wasn't, hold on, I just need to put in a caveat here. I'm using terms that they were using in the drama, like break up his marriage, but this is very gendered, these kind of terms. Like, a woman outside isn't going to come in to break up your marriage. The man cheating on his wife is breaking up his own marriage. Okay, moving on.
It's important to say.
Yeah. But so her intentions were that her child should at least know her father. And again, you completely understand where she would have been coming from. But then her romance with In-ho seems to have been rekindled, and I'm completely in Mihi's corner, like your Jung-suk's best friend. What is it about this man? What is it about this man that he managed to get two literally amazing women to just lose their heads over him? What?
For decades.
For decades. Just,
yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't seem to have one redeeming quality. What was it?
And then she was like, is he really good in bed? She was like, I don't know. We haven't slept in the same bedroom for 10 years. It's just so good.
It was really good.
Their friendship, by the way, was I loved their friendship.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was like such a, like, you can feel the history of everything that they've been through together and like how deeply they understand and like love and respect each other. We're also like being able to like,
say hard truths,
call each other out on stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I like that the way In-ho's past relationship with Sung-hee was introduced to us through the two of them discussing it on their like girls' night out. And her friend basically being like, well, you stole your husband from, the girl he was in a relationship with. And, like how devastated she was. Like, clearly her sympathy was, and even like Jung-suk was embarrassed about what had happened before. It was like a very honest conversation that you can only have with a very close friend, where that you can show your true sympathies without judging each other. So I really love these parts of the story a lot. And so coming back to Sung-hee is this Sungi is this respected doctor, a family medicine. She's brought up her daughter by herself. Everybody around her believes that she's divorced. Um,
Hmm.
but the thing is that I suppose, like, uh, when we meet Sunghi in the drama, she's already again in a relationship with Inho, and it's just like it's so complicated at this point. And Inho knows about his daughter, but he's not very comfortable with her because his daughter is, for obvious reasons, very contemptuous towards him. I really liked this girl. What was her name?
It was Unso.
Unso. So I really liked Unso too. And when you saw things from Unso's perspective, like about her growing up without her dad and then finding out that she was the product of an extramarital affair, that does things to a child's mind. So I really like that the drama did show us things from their perspective. Even though it was the product of a lot of bad decisions, you needed to see things from, because usually even when the husband is shown, like you see various facets of his decisions, the woman that he's cheating with, she almost never gets any dimension. So I really liked that they cast an actress who could give Sung-hee's character as much dignity as Moon Se-bin could, and that
She did
Lee
such a good
Spencer,
job.
she did such a good job, and that they showed us not just Sung-hee's perspective, but her daughter's perspective. Where I have complaints is they really, like in the middle of the drama, it felt like Sung-hee started to realize what a bad deal she had been handed and chosen with this affair that she has with Inho. Like it's harming her daughter, and it's ruining her relationship with her daughter pretty much. It's actively harming her self-respect, just everything. And so she makes the choice. She starts looking into going back to the US with her daughter again. She starts looking into it. And then I don't know what happens in the story. She suddenly veers back towards, no, I must have him away from Jung-suk, and goes up to Jung-suk and is like, divorce him. Just why? Why? Like, I mean,
Yeah. I think there were like 2 or 3 episodes in the middle there that we could have just like chopped out. Because other than that, I'm like generally okay. But I just feel like that whole plot line, it did get dragged out a little too long. And like, she's a smart woman. I don't think that it would have taken her that long to be like, you're not worth this to Inho. But at the same time, I can also kind of, I do have sympathy for the fact that she's like, oh, like I've come this far. I know that's what they always say. I've come this far. I can't stop now. But like for her, she really, you can, and I mean, I think this really goes down to the portrayal of the actress, Myung Se-bin, who did such a good job of like, you can see how like she knows that she made a lot of bad decisions, but she's also like, I've invested so much into this man who's actually kind of a piece of trash. Like, where do I go from here? Like, what have I done? You know? And then so she's like, okay, so now how do I not be this person? I really loved the scene where after she finds out that this patient that she had kind of made a connection with was Jung-suk's mom, and then she treats her, and then she leaves, and she writes her that letter. And I was like, what's going to be in this letter? I was like, why would you write her a letter? And it was such a perfect letter. It was like, I can't, really, I liked you and I was rooting for you and I had empathy for you. She's like, I can't say I'm rooting for you anymore, but I still have empathy for you. And like, you still have a chance to be a good person. Like, why don't you take it? And that's what kind of breaks her. And she's like, oh, I can, and it's, I don't know. And for her as like someone who didn't have a mother, to have this like best mother of all mothers, Kim Mi-kyung, tell her that, it just really worked for me.
Yeah.
So
just Kim Mi-kyung, I know I was talking about like the, about how other actresses could have been cast in a role. But Kim Mi-kyung just does such a perfect job in these situations. She doesn't give off like motherly, nurturing vibes. But like when she sits you down and she is just being her sensible, empathetic self, like all the characters that she plays, it rends your heart. Like,
she has that like give it to you straight mom energy of like, you might not want to hear this, but I'm telling it to you and it's out of love. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but you know it's out of love. Like somehow she makes that work and you're like, and she's like straight faced and you're like crying, you know?
She
Like,
can also do it when she has no dialogues at all. Reference airs. My God, I will never get over her character and her relationship with like Lee Min-ho's mom in that drama. Just for the ages, just epic.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my
I really liked.
sorry, go
Go ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
no, go on.
No, I just wanted to. I was gonna go back to Sung-hee and her daughter, and I wanted to agree with you that like I really loved how they handled the whole thing with her daughter Unso, and
Yeah.
like also just I don't know how you felt about this, but I thought the whole thing of like how everyone finds out about the affair and when and how was really well done.
Yeah,
Like, and it
I
was
agree.
somehow they made this extremely upsetting and horrible thing also funny, which like kudos to the writers and director because I don't know if I would be ever be, but it was like hilarious. Like everybody knows they're all upset. They're like want to kill the dad, but at the same time, like it was so funny. And then like I also appreciated that they didn't drag it out for too long. Everyone kind of found out one after the other, and it didn't take her too long to find out either, Jung-suk.
Yeah.
And then like how the daughter kind of Sung-hee's daughter confronts Jung-suk's daughter and how that all plays out. Like it was very raw and real and emotional, but it was also funny. I don't know how they did that. It was very well done. I was impressed.
I completely agree. I one of my favorite scenes during that entire revelation string of events. The initial thing that I absolutely loved was all his kids, his daughter finding out, and almost simultaneously his son finding out because he saw his dad with Sung-hee, and then of course the daughter coming home and just telling his mom. And
I
just,
love that.
But I love this girl so much, Irang. It just, I loved her. She was so great. And the thing is that once she gets over the fear of her father finding out about, her art classes and stuff, she just drops truth bombs after truth bombs, and it's perfect. And I really love that she's just being straight. She's not even just being rude. Like she's really telling her dad as things are. And then her dad's like, you can't be this rude to me, I'm your father. And then even his mom is like, listen, you have no standing here anymore. Like, you shouldn't have cheated if you wanted to be respected by your daughter. And like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly that.
I don't always agree with you, Mom, but right now there's also this one scene where she's like reading the Bible and talking about like the one who breaks the bonds of matrimony will be cursed or something, and then he like walks in. It's so funny. There's all these moments like that are just like so funny.
It was great. It was really, really, really good. And
also,
like,
you have that catharsis because like, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just that the entire family trying to keep it from Jung-suk. I mean, let's keep the mother-in-law's motivations aside for a second, but initially all of them banded together to keep it from Jung-suk because they didn't want her to be hurt. They realized how devoted she was to the family, and then this would devastate her. Of course, they underestimated, the amount of growth she's had, but still, it came from a place of love, and you kind of could see why. And even the mother-in-law was like, you can't do this. How could you do this to Jung-suk?
Yeah.
That was her reaction.
It was her initial reaction. Whatever she was doing later on, like initially she was just like genuinely like when she first finds out, she like starts hitting him with a pillow and is like, how could I have raised such a sinful child? What have you done? How can you do this to Jung-suk? And I was like, okay, I can't completely hate you.
She was so good. I'm sorry, you were
so
saying it was really cathartic. You were saying,
oh, that was what it is. It was cathartic to see her beating him with a pillow and telling him like, how could I raise such a sinful and horrible child? Because this whole time she's just been like unequivocally on his side, no matter how crappy he was, to the point of like not even allowing him to, like she's like, oh no, you can't put her name on the deed of the house. No, you can't donate your liver to her. Like you're the only one who matters. Just like really gross stuff. Like before she knew that they were having an affair together, she was like, oh, you should have married that other girl, that you were engaged to, Sung-hee. Like she would have been so much better. She's rich. She's this, she's that. Look at her now. She's so successful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
That was nice to see her like turn on him because he deserved it the whole time.
I agree. I agree. Okay, so one other relationship that I just want to quickly talk about is Jongmin, like the son, and Sora's. They just,
Yes.
I love them so much. It was just so cute throughout
Yes.
the drama. Their entire romance was very like mostly in the background, but I like that the two of them had dissimilar characters, but they understood each other well. That, when because of how rough she is with her words and actions, even though her heart is in the right place, when Sora finds out that Jungsook is her boyfriend's mother and thinks of all of the times when she's treated Jungsook as a resident, as she should, but she is harsh in tone, and she realizes that from a typical mother's point of view, I mean, her boyfriend's mom probably hates her right now. Like, she's really anxious about it, but she can't really express those feelings in exactly those words to her boyfriend. So she ends up just being like, yeah, of course she hates me. I can't ever change. This is who I am. Like, she's very abrupt about expressing what she's actually feeling. So they have like their little breakup, and I'm just like, oh my God, sweethearts, just like sit together and talk it out. Because honest, Jungsook has no problems with her. Like, initially she's like, what a rude girl, but then she can see, especially during that car ride. I love that car ride. All female relationships should have like a car
Yeah.
ride montage.
The car ride was so good. And I also really liked how the way that it was written, she finds out that she's his mom at the same time that she finds out, like, she already knows that his dad is cheating.
Yeah.
And then she also
She
finds
has a
out
lot
that,
of complex things she has to work through.
yeah. So then on one hand, she's like, oh, I made a bad impression on my boyfriend's mom. And then on the other hand, she's like, oh, you're in a really bad place right now. And so like, she's like, okay, how do I, but I really liked how her first instinct was just to like be nice to Jungsook and kind of
Yeah.
like comfort her in her own like awkward way. And I just really loved how their relationship developed. That was really good.
I loved it. I mean, just like give me more, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationships like this, please. It was just so sweet to watch.
Yeah. And
So,
like
yeah.
even though she's kind of a side character, you got a really clear picture of her. Like when she's sitting with Jungsook and kind of like talking with her and keeping her company, she's like, this is what happened to me. My dad, cheated with another woman, and so like she has that in her backstory, and it also kind of explains why she's so prickly and she doesn't like let people in that easily, because she's been hurt in this way, right? And she doesn't feel that safe showing her emotions. And so like I love that even as a side character, you got so much development for her and so much like three-dimensionality.
Agreed. Isn't she a singer or something? Oh, she is. She is part of a South Korean girl group. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay. I have never
Gogudan.
seen her before.
I haven't either, but I'd heard some chatter about her being part of a girl group at some point. Apparently, she left the group in 2018, and she started working with a different agency after that. Okay, but no, I
okay.
heard some chatter, and I had no idea. But people were like, "Oh my God, she can act," and I'm like, "Oh, was that like not an expectation?" Okay, she can act.
Seeing her picture again, because I was looking at her page, her like profile page, is reminded me of like one of the biggest complaints I had about this drama, which is like everyone in this drama, especially the women, had ghost face. They all were made up with like a layer, like a shade of foundation that was like 3 shades too light for them. It was creepy, it was unsettling, and it was like such a like, why did they do that? Why did they do that to Jung-hwa? Why did they do that to Aram? Like they're so pretty, and then they do this horrible makeup on them that they just look like walking ghosts. I was so upset.
I agree.
It bothered me so much.
It was very weird. You're right. Especially with Jung-hwa, she has an excellent complexion. There's really no reason to do that. And of course, it distracts you. Like initially, I was noticing the makeup a bit too much.
Yeah, it continued to bother me until the end. I was just like, we don't need this colorism. Like you're not making this person look prettier by making her whiter, and then you can see the neck and the hands, and they're like 3 shades darker. Like it just looks weird. Anyway, I had to point
Yeah.
that out because it really like it was. I know most K dramas do that, but it was
No,
particularly
most
egregious in
K
this
dramas
one.
do something that I am realizing a lot more now, because C dramas do it even more sometimes. And just having noticed it once, I notice it a lot in K dramas now. Is the skin blurring in post production. The poreless skin of all the main
Hmm.
characters. They don't do it with side characters. It's always with the main leads, especially the romantic main leads. Their skins will be the look. Keep an eye on the cheek area and compare it with something like their nose area, or their their temples, and you'll see that there is slight skin blurring happening. It's very hard to notice now with how high quality the camera footage is, but if you went back a few years and watched dramas like from 2014, 2015, you would easily be able to spot the skin blurring. I used to think this was just bad camera situation. Like, it was not high definition enough, the copy that I was watching. But no, it's literal skin blurring, and it has continued to this day. Like I
That
said,
is
C dramas do it
wild.
even more.
Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
You
That's
will be able to
wild.
see the pores on the faces of the side characters, but not the main characters. I dare
Huh.
you. Try
Oh,
it.
I kind of don't want to. I kind of didn't want to know this, Parma. Oh. But anyway,
Yeah.
so should we talk about the sort of the resolution for Jungsook and Inho at the end? Because I wanna get into that.
Yes, please.
So basically, what happens is she has to like her body rejects the initial organ that she got,
Mm.
the initial liver transplant. So she needs another liver transplant. So you have Roy came over here being all uber dramatic and being like, "I will donate my liver to you," and she's like, "I don't. Please don't. Thank you for the
Just stop.
thought. You really don't need to do that." And then Inho is like, "Oh, here's my opportunity to like, a make her stay with me," because at this point he's like decided that he wants to stay with her. He's already broken up with Sung Hee. He says, "Oh, like let me just live the rest of my life as your husband, making it up to you." And she's like, "No." But that's what he wants. He's not giving her a divorce. And so he's like, "Oh, I can also use my liver to make up for all the bad things that I've done." And then eventually he realizes that that's a really bad thing to do. And so he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll just donate my liver to you, no strings attached, and I'll also give you the divorce because I realize that I've been such a horrible person." And so he donates his liver to her. She has a new lease on life. They get divorced and it's over. And then I actually I know people were mad that he got like quote unquote redeemed, but I was actually okay with this because he has a lot of chances to reflect on how bad everything that he's done is. Like, it's not like he just suddenly one day wakes up and is like, "Oh, I'm a horrible person. I shouldn't have done all of this." He has a lot of little moments where, like, people say things to him and he kind of like, you can see like he doesn't really want to accept it. And like, he has a journey of like accepting his own responsibility in all of this. I thought that
Mm.
was well done. And I also appreciated that, like, at the end, there's this scene where he becomes the director of the hospital, right? You see him after they sign the divorce papers. He goes back to his office, and he goes and he's like sitting at his new desk, and he imagines like what it would have been like if he hadn't screwed up his family and like cheated on his wife and basically destroyed what they had. And he imagines them like coming in and being excited for him and congratulating him, and then they're not there,
Yeah.
and he's all alone. And he's like, you can see on his face that he finally like realizes what he's done. And he's alone now, and that's what he deserves. And so I actually was really happy with that. I thought it was really well done. I don't think it was like a redemption that was unearned.
I also don't think it was a redemption at all. I think it
Yeah.
was a character who had a proper arc. Like, he learned something at the end. Like, he was horrible throughout, but he wasn't rewarded for learning that, because he learned it way too late.
No,
If he
exactly.
had
I didn't
been
really see it as a redemption. I agree.
Exactly. If he had been rewarded the way Kwon Min-woo was at the end of the first season of Extraordinary Attorney
Kwon
Woo,
Min-woo.
and he didn't even realize what he had done wrong.
No.
So that was redemption, because he got rewarded for having like doing the most basic thing. He was like, "Here, take like the best, nicest woman as your girlfriend now. She will, make you I don't know, be a better person. Anyway, but that is not what the story wanted to do. The story gave you a character who was selfish, self-important, completely devoted to his own interests and very calculating. To the point where he would happily barter his, daughter's future just to hide his cheating ways from his wife. He was a really shitty person. So for him to realize at the end that you can't blackmail and force and coerce a person into staying with you and loving you. At one point, this Inho started saying, to Roy Kim, how can you get in the way of love? Love finds a way. And I'm like, at what point in your 25 years of marriage were you ever in love with your wife? Did you ever? He didn't know her birthday. He'd never given her a gift. It's that romance had never been part of their relationship. Mm-mm. So what are you talking about? Like, he had this entire world built up in his own head. And once he decided that, of course, he had this great love with his wife, everybody just had to accept it. So for him to realize that that is not right, that what he's doing is wrong-headed and stupid, and it's hurting the person that he apparently loves now. Yeah, go on.
You know what I also appreciated about how they kind of built his character is you could also see that his mother has a lot to do with the kind of person he is, because at every point she's egging on his wrong decisions. At every point she's reinforcing his unreasonably high opinion of himself. At every point she's reinforcing this unfair dynamic that he has between him and his wife. At every point she's treating his wife like a servant, and he also feels fine treating her like a servant. And so Irong, his daughter, actually turns to her grandma at one point, is like, you didn't raise your son right. Why did he turn out like this? And she's like, yeah, actually, you're right. I didn't raise him right. And that was so good. When do you ever get this kind of character, called out in that way in a Korean drama where that has multiple generations of a family living together? You usually don't. Usually the parents are old, so they can never be at fault. That's the general. Even if they made mistakes, really, it's your fault as their kid. There are definitely exceptions, but it's rare for,
Though it's your duty as the child, as the younger one, to just forgive the older people. Even if they haven't apologized, just forgive them anyway.
And Kim Mi-kyung's character also calls her out on that. She's she calls her out on the fact that she's been a big part of the problem. And one of the reasons that her daughter has been really unhappy for a long time. Yeah. And she's like, maybe we can move on from this, but I know what you did, basically. She's like, I'm not gonna accept all. And that scene where she gives back all those gifts. She's like, these are bribes. I don't want these gifts that you gave me after you realized what a horrible thing your son did to my daughter. Take them back. So that was all really refreshing. And so I really appreciate that they didn't just let the mother be a comic relief character like she was, but at the same time her actions had consequences, and they dealt with those consequences.
Agreed. It's satisfying that when the truth came out, the people that we were rooting for reacted to them in the way we hoped that they would react to those situations. When someone did an evil thing, it wasn't papered over. But also I was really happy that throughout this story, even though we had a lot of distractions with the whole love triangle stuff that was happening, the main themes of the drama in the beginning was that you had Jung-suk in a position where she couldn't really support herself. She had already brought up her children. Oh, something that I really liked was that once she decided that, hey, I have this, she had hepatitis, she had a liver transplant, she realized that life was precious. So she's like, I've given enough of my life. I really need to do something for myself. So even though her daughter was studying to get into college, it's a crucial time for her. She's like, I can't waste any more of my time. I like that the writers stuck to that. It would have been very easy because everybody around her was like, but just do it next year. Just do it. She'd already given so many years of her life to this. And so she tells her daughter, listen, I am here for you, but I just can't wait. I cannot wait anymore. It's not possible for me. And she of course has to deal with several weeks or maybe months of her daughter's, just because her daughter is unused to her mother choosing herself over her. And but that is a choice she makes and she sticks to it. I love that. So I really love Jung-suk as a character, just on her own.
Yeah.
Aside from everything else, I really like that in the beginning, she at one point she tells her friend that, I have to admit that I was part of the problem. Even though I was treated poorly inside my house, when I went out carrying my mother-in-law's second-hand bag, like in hand-me-downs, because I couldn't spend any money on myself. I was so guilt-ridden that I was dependent on them. I did still have that, the pride of being the daughter-in-law of this particular family, of this well-educated family. My husband worked in a prestigious hospital. That the wife of the rich man, like the mistress of the house, I did take some pride in that. And now I realize how futile that was. So
Yeah.
by the end of the drama, where her drunk friend is like, can you actually divorce him? Would you actually be happy? Maybe stay with him. Maybe, make this work. You've made all the relationships in your life work. I didn't love that. I really didn't love that advice. But honestly, that was probably not the worst thing to say to a character like Jung-suk, who has shown that she's tenacious in a certain way. But also at this point, she had mentally already checked out from that relationship. Like, it's done for her. She has other things in her life now. She has medicine. She's seeing that she has a life beyond this family. Also, crucially, she sees that she has not lost the support of her family, like her children, because she was afraid how her decision to pursue medicine would affect her children. Turns out household runs just fine without her. Her children survive without her. It's those, small decisions culminating to the ending where she can walk away and, pursue this divorce. Because if that had been the very first thing she pursued at the beginning of the drama, that would have been really hard for her, because she had no alternative. She had nowhere else to go. In her own head, she would have been a burden to her mother if she went there.
Even, there's that conversation she has with Roy Kim when before he joins the hospital, he's like just stopping by and they run into each other.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, how are you doing? Blah, blah. And then he's like, maybe this isn't my place to say, but I think you should leave your husband. Like, he wasn't there for you during this, really crucial time. Like, you don't need him. And she was like, no. Yeah, you don't have the right to say that to me. But also, like, you're right. Like, she wasn't in a position to just leave him at that point.
Yeah.
She hadn't built the kind of support system and not just like a financial support system, but like a psychological and emotional support system, which she needed to be able to leave that marriage, which by the end she has done. And you reminded me of something that I didn't like, which is like, all of a sudden at the end, when she's about to get divorced, everyone in her life knows exactly what this man has done to her, right? And they're like, oh, why don't you just stay with him? Like, so many people, not just one person. I was like, what the hell? So that kind of ticked me off. I wasn't happy with that.
Yeah,
but like, thankfully it didn't last too long. But I was just like, this is garbage. Like, what is this? Anyway.
Agree. That was pissing me off too. The only plot reason that I could think of that they would do this thing is the conventional thing that usually happens. Everybody supports you in an unfair marriage where you're being abused or your husband is cheating you, but the moment you say divorce, everybody around you is like, oh, but wait, that is too much. Like,
no, that's true. There's a lot of stigma. There's still, there's not as much stigma around divorce as there used to be, but it's still
especially
there.
with that generation, it's just that much harder. But also the other thing is that for our protagonist, it gave her one last hurdle to jump over. Like, the opinions of others couldn't sway her anymore, even though they were the ones who were closest to her. And honestly, I just respected the character even more for sticking to her guns at the end. So
can I also say how much I love that she took that building that her mother-in-law was using as a tax shelter and turned it into like her own clinic / cafe, where she basically like is a perfect doctor, which like who cares if this is a fantasy? Like I would go to her. I would go to her.
I loved it so much.
It was
I
so
honestly
perfect.
thought when she found that out that she would just turn it over to her mother-in-law and be like, well, I am not greedy. I'm not after your money. I can support myself. No, man. Of course you should take the building. I
Not
loved
only
it.
did she
Was
take it, but she
perfect.
framed it in a really fair way. She was like, I'm taking that building. It's already got my name on it. You can have the house, which like he already owns the house. But she was like, no, I deserve half of that house, but I'm letting
Yeah.
you have it. Because and he can't say anything because he knows that she
Yeah.
deserves half of that house. And he's like been unfairly keeping it away from her. So
Ah,
good.
I loved it so damn much. Yeah. Okay,
So yeah, so I think are those basically our final thoughts on Dr. Cha? I wanted to move on to like some other, Ahjumma gets her groove back type dramas that we've enjoyed
yeah,
in the past.
absolutely, absolutely. So Anisa did this Lone Yak, like this voice note diaries thing that we do like every week or so on Patreon. So Anisa did one on Ahjumma's getting their groove back, basically. And it reminded me of so many dramas that we've seen this happen, and there are certain like broad trends that we've really loved watching those dramas. So that's this segment, guys. That's what we are talking about now.
So the one that like is probably my favorite out of this genre is 20 Again. It's also
Yeah,
known
of
as Second
course.
20s, but 20 Again is like the epitome of this. And if you haven't seen it, I'll just give like a really quick plot summary. Basically, you have Cheju, who's in this marriage with a terrible man, of course. But she never finished college because she started her family. So she decides that she's going to go back to college. I don't remember exactly what the catalyst was, but she goes back to college. She, decides to leave her husband, and then she reconnects with someone that she knew in her past. And then there's like a lovely romance. But also she becomes this like wonderful like unni figure to her classmates who are, young women, a lot of them. She like advocates for them. She goes back and like she goes back to school, but now she's like a grown woman who has like Ahjumma powers. So she's not shy about like speaking up for herself, speaking up for her peers. And she just becomes this like beloved figure to her classmates. She like pursues her dreams. She finds a great man to like start a new romance with. It's so good. It's so good, and she is so wonderful in this role.
I
So like, highly recommend that if you haven't seen it.
highly recommend. I couldn't understand, even when the Dr. Cha trailer dropped, I immediately thought of 20 Again. And
Mm-hmm.
when like just the first episode was airing, I'm like, beat by beat, this is 20 Again. How is it that nobody's talking about the plot? I'm not saying it's like a copy or anything, but I'm saying often you have like you're inspired by, or hey, it's very possible that the writer saw 20 Again and was like, I can do it differently. I can tell a similar story. So let's do that. I don't know if that happened, but I'm saying like there are very
Yeah, I mean, you just switched the
similar.
hospital out for the college, right? Like her husband is also a university professor. Her son is also attending the same school as her. Like there's a
So
lot of similarities.
I actually went back and watched 20 Again last year, so I can tell you what the impetus was for her to go back to college. It was her husband basically saying that he's embarrassed of her because she hasn't even finished college. And
Oh
it
yes, he was so horrible.
he was played by Chaewon Young, and this, by the way, we love Kim Byung Chul. We really love him. But like this husband character, the slimy husband character who's cheating on her, of course, and then halfway through the drama flips and is like, I can't live without my wife. She is the ultimate one. Yeah, so that originally was done by Chaewon Young, and he had nailed
Kills it.
it.
Yes,
So
kills
good.
it as usual. He kills everything. He's so good.
He did an even more pompous take on the character, but he was also hilarious in his petty jealousies, especially once his wife starts getting close to another professor in the college and her childhood friend. Played by Lee Sung-yeon. The one complaint I have about the drama is I never liked Lee Sung-yeon, and that
You didn't like Lee Sung-yeon?
no.
I
And
think
also this character, but don't you remember this character was like, because he had some misunderstandings and a heartbreak that he was nursing for years, he was petty and
He
mean to
wasn't
her.
great. He wasn't great
Yeah.
in the beginning, but I feel like he redeemed himself by the end.
I suppose, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, it's been a while, but I do remember not liking him at first. But what's another drama that you loved in this genre? Orma?
The Queen of Mysteries, of course. So,
Yes.
which, by the way, watch the first season, not the second
I
season.
was gonna say season 1 is incredible. Season 2 is not worth
Not at all.
watching.
At all. So the female protagonist there is she is based kind of on Sherlock. So her name is Yu Solok. And Solok is played by Che Kong-hee. And she's played wonderfully. Like, she is just, it's really hard to emphasize how great she is in this character. She's great. But she's a genius, but she's also, it's almost like she's going undercover as a housewife. But then her genius comes out in things like supermarket sales. And it's hilarious. But she's the nosiest Ahjumma possible. And then she stumbles upon a case that's being worked on by this detective who's played by Kwon Min-woo. And she starts nosing around and has like better hunches and clearly, much better ideas about where the investigation should be going.
Yeah.
And he gets super annoyed with her. But like the more time he spends with her, the more he realizes like how brilliant she is.
Kwon Min-woo is a really grumpy Watson, by the way, in this situation.
Super.
He's
Like,
great.
they are like headbutting throughout the drama. And of course, like you have a situation where he is, he's kind of like the second male lead-ish, but this is not really a drama that leans in on like the romance of the thing. It's far more about this Ahjumma housewife, like this concept of the, nosy Ahjumma, the neighborhood auntie who's just like in everybody's business. Like she knows what's happening and she can tell easily what's going on because she is that smart, but she has been really oppressed by her family. And everything from physical to verbal abuse, and she's just been kept down in like the worst possible way. And so it's her story of both solving cases, and this is almost episodal. It's not like just one case, but it's like several series of cases, her getting involved, and then her basically leading a double life where she is housewife by day and mystery solving
Detective by night. Yeah, I love it. And like, I also really love the beautiful partnership that she builds with Kwon Sang-woo's character, where like he values her for like what she can do, and and in the rest of her life she's just the wife, and it's about like how she can be of service to everyone else. But he values her for who she is and what she brings, like her specifically, her Yusaluk. So yeah, it's really beautiful.
It is.
Also, one of the best and most emotional karaoke scenes I've ever seen in my life. Just gonna leave that there. That was beautiful.
It was so good. I agree. Also, my God, Kwon Sang-woo has a beautiful voice. I remember looking up the clip of him singing and just barely finding one on YouTube, and I played it over and over again. It was beautiful. Do I want a romance at the end of that story? Yes, but
it
don't
wasn't meant
go
to
in.
be.
Yeah,
just lower your expectations. They did have amazing chemistry.
They absolutely had it. Like if you never watched season 2, then you can just imagine sometime in the future, when the time is right, when they are ready.
Yes,
yeah,
that's my headcanon for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to quickly mention Sky Castle because I know that's not like the main point of the drama. It's about getting your child into school with the help of murderers. But I did.
Anisa, that was so good. Get your child into school with the help of murderers. So iconic.
That's the tagline for this show. But one of like the highlights of that show for me was Yoon Se and her husband, who's again played by Kim Byung-chul here. And just like, he's just the most hateful, horrible. It's very similar to his character in Dr. Cha. Like, he only cares about, his children getting into prestigious schools. And he's basically like willing to do anything, like bordering on abuse in order to get them in. And her journey of just being like, no, you're a terrible father. You're an abusive father and husband. I'm not gonna. And she like basically just puts her foot down and and like changes the whole dynamic of her family, like the queen that she is. Also, without ever raising her voice, really, and in the most like classy and like hilarious way possible. And just, I don't know, like the whole arc of I don't even want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but like she is so good in that. Just she just like revamps her entire family dynamic with the force of her sheer will. It's
Agreed.
amazing.
It was beautiful. It was one of my favorite arcs. Actually, it was the most, the favorite arc in that drama.
Yeah.
It was great.
Best thing about that show. Yeah.
I
Also,
think,
I love her kids. Her
yeah,
twins.
her kids were so good.
They were so good. They were so
Agreed.
good. They were the only kids that I was genuinely rooting for in that drama, I have to admit. Everybody else was kind of horrible.
The other drama that I thought of, which again doesn't exactly fit the mold, but I think you would agree, 18 Again, the 2020 drama, which had Kim Han-yeol and Lee Do-hyun and Yoon Sung-hyun, Oscar. Yoon Sung-hyun.
I did say Yoon Sung-hyun. You didn't believe me.
I didn't. I was like, what if it's wrong? So
It's okay.
Kim Han-yeol's character, like I know that on the one hand, Yoon Sung-hyun's character is also supposed to be finding his groove, but we are focusing on Ahjumma's in this one. And Kim Han-yeol, like both her kids are in high school. She has been trying to get her announcer job. She's been working for years for that, between raising her kids. And finally, and of course, earning when she can, but then finally she gets the job. She gets her dream job, and she gets it when she is, middle-aged. But she goes through so much keeping that job, but also impressing people, like really letting her light shine. And yeah, that's definitely Ahjumma getting her groove back. She was fantastic, man.
We don't have like a lot more time. This is gonna get really long, but can we just do like a lightning round of other shows that this made us think of, Forma?
Romance is a bonus book.
Yes.
Kangdani.
Kangdani. Yes, that one definitely. Perfume, which I still haven't
Perfume.
finished, but our friend Anya the Yager recommends it. I know like the beginning kind of turned me off, but I'm determined to finish it because she said it was really satisfying, especially from that particular angle, and I trust her. Hello Me. So Hello Me is another Chae Kang-hee drama. She is not actually married in this, but she meets her younger self and has kind of like a renewal of, like, she's just in a really bad place, and she kind of like revives again. She kind of reconnects with who she wanted to be as a teenager and like pursues her dreams in a really beautiful way. And this is a cute romance. It's not like like an over the top intense romance.
I loved
but
it, man. It worked
Kim
for
Young
me.
Kwon and her were so cute together that I didn't need it to be like the main point of the drama. It was just perfect. It was like just the right amount.
Okay. I can't think of any else. Can you?
Yeah, well, I thought I have a few more. I can just list
Yeah,
them.
go on.
So, in Search WWW, there's the character played by Jun Hae-jin. Her name is Ga-kyung. She's like basically in a marriage of convenience with a chaebol heir. And
Where her husband is madly in love with her. Oh,
it's
that was
so good.
good.
It's so good. But like you see how if you actually had a marriage of convenience with a chaebol heir, not like in like a fantasy land, but in real life, how miserable it would be and like what it would actually be like. And so she's like, actually, I don't need to live like this. And so that that arc is really beautiful. And really well done.
Oh, I thought of another drama, Mine 2021, where Lee Bo-young, who has like a fantastic relationship with her sister-in-law, by the way. It's just so good. So Lee Bo-young plays this woman who is she's been married into this chaebol family, and she fits in perfectly, except that she's kind of lost herself while playing that character of the perfect chaebol wife, raising, the perfect chaebol child in this family that is just equal parts cruel and awful and privileged and just horrible. Until she finds out that certain things have happened in her family, and then she and her sister-in-law both kind of, they emerge out of that situation. It's great. It's fantastic. Everyone should watch that.
And then before we end, I want to name two more that are like using time travel to get your groove back, which is Go Back Couple. And well, I guess My Familiar Life isn't really time travel exactly. It's like an alternate reality. But so Go Back Couple is this couple that's basically on the brink of divorce go back to their college days. Both of
Yeah.
them travel back in time, and then they have to like figure out if they really want to live their life together, what happened to their dreams, how
Yeah.
they're gonna, beautiful drama. Loved it. And then My Familiar Wife is like about Ji-sung and Han Ji-min
Mm.
are also a very unhappy couple, and he basically like makes a wish to never have married her.
Ah.
And his wish comes true, and so he lives his life as if he had never married her. And then he's like, oh, is this really what I wanted? And one of the really brilliant things, I know it starts with the man's perspective, but what I really loved about this is like the first half is from his perspective, the second half is actually really more about her. So that was really very well done.
I loved it.
Highly recommend
Actually,
both of those dramas.
Ji-sung in the initial episodes, he's kind of like a really like true younger version of Kim Byung-chol's character in Dr. Cha.
He's the worst. He's so terrible. You
He's
like feel
horrible.
for his wife. Yeah.
You just like his glee at finding himself in his alternate life being married to this other woman that he had kind of idealized in his head.
The one that got away, kind of.
The one that got away, and being allowed to like play games all day, just like it's like I can't even tell you how annoyed I was with this guy. Like it took Anisa telling me that it gets really satisfying in the second half for me to go back and watch it, because I watched the first 2 episodes and I hated I hated Ji-sung's character so much. I was just
There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of
Yeah.
growth that needs to happen, but it happens, and it's good.
It does. And Han Ji-min is just the boss. She was
Yeah.
so good in this drama.
It's one of my favorite performances from her. Okay, so we've been talking for a long time, but thank you for staying with us this whole time. This was really fun. I wanted to, Dr. Cha, I was kind of, as I was watching it, I was like, this is fine. It's good, but it's not like the best. So why is it so beloved? And then I was thinking about like, what is it about this particular type of show that is so satisfying? And that's just started thinking about these kind of shows where like a middle-aged woman basically gets her life back. And maybe in an even better way than she would have lived it the first time, because she has the benefit of like all of that life experience that she wouldn't have had if she made these choices when she was like 17 or 18. And it's just so like uplifting and joyful and like satisfying and cathartic to see.
Agreed.
And I think I'm starting to enjoy them more as I get older also.
Yeah, me too. Also, I was talking about this in the Bora episode, but it's really nice. It's always been nice. Like even when I was in my 20s and watching K-dramas, it was always really nice to see these actresses in their late 30s, early 40s, late 40s, early 50s, like genuinely like older women, but like who also still have half of their life left to live. Like it's the fact that their stories are not over, there are stories to tell, it was just really encouraging for me at that point, and even more so now, because it makes you look forward to growing older. Because damn, if society doesn't tell us every minute of every day that, hey, if you're a year older, you might as well just freeze up and die because you have
After
like
30,
no value.
your life is over. Like K-dramas was the first media that gave me the message that I can have a life after 30. And like
Yeah.
no other media that I've ever consumed in my life ever said that, like explicitly or implicitly. It's like, once you're not a woman in your 20s, that's it. You might as well just like dig your own grave and like hop in and wait for death to take you, like that's the impression that you get like all your life, absorbing all this like from Hollywood and even from like Bollywood and like all the books that we read. They're all about young people, like
Yeah.
So, and K-dramas are just like unapologetically like, yes, a 39-year-old woman can have a beautiful romance in real life and on the screen,
Yeah.
Look at Son Ye-jin inspiring all of us.
Okay, yes. So, K-dramas doing their job right is when they are inspiring us like this.
Yes. All right.
This is good.
Where can people find us?
So you can find Dramas Over Flowers on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find me, Paroma, at The Drama Notes.
And you can find me on Twitter at Anisa Khalifa _. You can find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers _.
And you can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Just look up Dramas Over Flowers. And our blog is dramasoverflowers.net.
Yes, and check out our newsletter. You can find the link in the description to subscribe. We're always writing something in there, and we're planning to write more. And also, connect to us by sending a voice note. We love getting voice notes. There's a little link for where you can leave a voice recording and send us like your thoughts about this episode or about anything K-drama related or even unrelated. Like we love getting notes from you.
Also, we've started getting replies on Spotify. That's a new feature they have started. And we got quite a few in different episodes, but especially on the Crash Landing on You one. We are loving these comments, guys.
Yes, thank you so much. We're not able to directly reply to you on Spotify, but we love them and we appreciate them and we're reading them. So thank you.
Yeah.
And Dramas Over Flowers is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. And that's it.
So thank you guys for listening to this episode. Bye.